if my memory serves right, we were playing football. I think it was like a 7-man team or something. Yep. And it was a small private school.
I was so embarrassed by that too, by the way.
Because it just wasn't the full thing,
no,
right?
It wasn't.
And so we had a play. Somehow somebody came up with it, and you were on the offense, and you went to go like you were going back on the sideline.
Yep.
But you didn't go all the way off. You stayed like right on the edge, and whoever the quarterback was, hike, however you said it, and then you took off. And if I'm remembering right, you caught the ball, and I don't know if we got a bunch of yards or whatever.
Oh, no, we scored, baby.
Did we score?
Yeah, come on now.
So, okay. But it was like it was one of those trick plays that worked, and it was just a great, trick play, I guess.
Yeah.
Smoke.
To another great episode of the Vision Lab podcast in partnership with Next One Creative. I'm your host, Ryan Cuffey, alongside my co-host, Mr. Ryan Mosley. The Vision Lab is the official growth mindset podcast for all visionaries worldwide, showing mad love to the cigar community. It's here in the lab where we uncover people's visions and dreams and how those dreams actually come into reality. Folks, it's all about tapping into and actually becoming the best versions of ourselves through self-discovery, self-examination, and self-actualization. Hey, yo, Mo. What we got in the lab today?
Cuff, today's guest is a native of Arlington, Texas. He is the president of his own nonprofit organization. Please welcome Zachary Bigley to the Vision Lab podcast.
Thanks for having me.
What up? What up?
I'm here. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's crazy how God works.
Yes.
Yes. I don't even know how long we've been friends on social media and Facebook or whatever, but I start seeing, you and, you're a pastor now, youth pastor.
Well, I guess if you're going to put a label on it, it would be more like an evangelist.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, you're big time.
I'm Zachary, though. You can call me Zach.
Yeah. But I know you. I've known you for, obviously, like you said, since seventh grade. And to see how God has transformed your life, and we're going to get into that today.
Okay.
Let's go back. We talked about education a little bit prior to the show. Mm-hmm. And you were, would it be fair to say a troubled kid?
Oh, that's very fair to
okay.
say.
I don't want to
quite accurate, actually.
So walk us through that. I mean, how did all of this happen? Like, what took place?
So if I can go way back, I was originally from Southern California. Okay. Born out there in Pomona, lived in Ontario, which is like, I don't know, 40, 50 something miles east of Los Angeles.
Right.
Dad was a Vietnam vet, drunk, drugs, just that whole environment. And so I would go, one day Dad was at the door, my brother, sister, I'm the baby of the family, mom were on the couch. And him and my mom got into it. She was like, look, you got to tell the kids you're leaving, whatever. He stands at the door and he more or less says, I'm going to be a sorry dad. I'd rather go get drunk. And then he left. Okay.
Wow.
And so growing up in the house with like a single mom, and I'm like the baby. So my brother's almost 10 years older than me. My sister's like 6.5 years older than me. And so I'd go over to the drug house, Dad's apartment. and I would see like, this one guy was OD'd on heroin in the shower, and I'd go outside to play and I'd see needles on the ground.
How old are you at this point?
So I'm between like 7, 8, 9 years old, something like that. Sitting there next to Dad, and he's like, here, pass this to, I could tell you the guy's name, I still remember, but pass this to so-and-so, and Dad's passing me a joint to pass to the next guy. And I walk outside, this is in California, and the sun was setting, and I'm a kid. I'm like, that sunset just seems like more colorful or different this time. Like that's going on, so contact buzz as a kid. Anyway, so I grew up in that environment, and but I had so that's Dad's area. Then I had Mom, and she was, Christian woman, praying mom. And so, in church. And so I grew up in this, and we end up moving to Texas. And it just kind of started escalating. And I got I don't want to put it off all of my friends because I had my own issues. And I was actually watching something on the Vision Lab podcast, and you were at the golf tournament. You were talking about fathers,
Right.
and you made the comment about, and I'm paraphrasing, but you said something in essence to just as fathers, we're underappreciated sometimes as dads, right?
Sure.
Moms get the "Hi, mom," I'm on TV. Hi, mom,
And rightfully so.
right? Because they're amazing,
Yeah, for sure.
and they're holding it down, right? But there's something about a dad being in the picture that helps keep things together, just as a man, right?
That just gave me goosebumps.
So, and it's true that you think about, and I don't, somebody can fact check this for me, but I was talking to someone and it was brought up about a stat like where when a father's out of the house, the statistics of like people getting in trouble, people going to prison, drugs, whatever, is a higher than when the dad's in the house. So when the dad's present, it just makes a difference. So anyway, man, I moved to Texas and started associating with some people, and man, I remember I was putting this dip, those little bandits, little tobacco. I thought it was so cool, man. I was in bowls actually.
Welcome to Texas.
Right, exactly. And I was in junior high, and at our junior high, they had these bleachers, and you're spitting behind the bleachers. And anyway, that escalated to smoking cigarettes and then smoking weed. Can I talk?
You can say whatever you want to say.
Okay.
Yes.
Smoking weed, and then it turned into like meth and then coke, and it just got deeper and deeper and like quick deep, right? And then I'm using and selling, and then I'm making money and
Blowing it.
well, spinning it. This was when Tommy Hilfiger shirts were a big deal when we were teenagers, right? So people trading like shirts for, it was just a mess.
Are you doing meth in seventh grade?
No,
or
so
as a teenager?
I was a teenager. I was probably 15.
Oh, wow.
Man, it was bad, dude. And I look back now that I'm 40, I'll just say my age. I'm 40 years old. And I look back because I work with youth
Right.
a lot now. And we'll get into like the hopeful side of this story in a moment. But I look back, a 15-year-old doing what I was doing. I'm like, what? Like, what?
Yeah.
And I could give you all kinds of just bad stories and sad stories. And it just turned into a big mess. And then cocaine just became a big thing, and we're doing it. And then, but then you start throwing the money that comes with it. And so here I am. I remember I made $1,000 one time, and like Thursday to Sunday was like the time. Okay. And I'm living at mom's house. So like your bills are minimal. You're a teenager, and you do $1,000 a weekend in a whole year. What do we got? 52 weekends in a year. That's roughly $52,000 a year as like a 17-year-old kid
With no bills.
with no bills, and you're just living and then you tell them to go to school.
Not happening.
What? I'm making, you're potentially making more money than your teachers that are grinding to provide an education. And so pride through the roof. You're thinking you're 10 foot tall, bulletproof. One 30-year-old woman gave me the title of her car. So it was a mess, right? But with all that comes like pride, and you just think you're almost invincible. And in the Vision Lab, what's so cool about that is because there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about where there is no vision, the people perish, right? And that word perish, if you look that up, kind of break it down, one of the definitions is they cast off restraint. They run wild. And so here I am running wild, casting off restraint because I didn't have vision, which is cool what you guys are doing here because you're allowing people to talk and you're giving us the opportunity to hear about the importance of a vision. So I'm getting deeper. I'm getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And I remember one time talking about vision, I was smoking some weed, and I was out on the front porch area of my mom's house in Arlington, Texas. And it's like I had this brief vision. I mean, like quick.
Right.
And I was probably 17 years old, and it's like I saw myself at like 30, married with kids. Like just quick. And I'm smoking. I'm getting high as a teenager, doing what I did. And it just was and I had this thought like, I don't want to be doing this when I'm in my 30s.
Right.
And it was just that quick, and it was gone. I went about my way, but it was the vision. And I'm a believer that when we can get a hold of this God-inspired picture for our life, when you get a hold of a vision of where you want to go, kind of what you're looking to come into, that helps you stay focused on achieving goals in life, helps you stay focused on overcoming addiction or overcoming quote unquote trouble, right? So fast forward, and y'all want me to like get into the story or no?
So I wanted to bring Mo in on this real quick because we talked offline about this many, many, many months ago, and you're talking about vision. And It was through social media, through Facebook specifically. I saw one of your evangelical sermons or whatever, right? And I was like, okay, I remember Zachary, and it was very profound. And I watched it, talking about vision, right? I watched it, and I watched like the story of you talking about being on your mom's porch and then coming inside.
Yeah, right.
So why don't you shed some light on that and illustrate or paint that picture for us?
Sure. So I guess I'm probably 17 years old, and I was smoking. I can be like real transparent here? Okay.
Well, hold on. Let me stop you.
Okay.
So we don't really answer to anybody. And the reason why people like this show is because they can literally be their true, authentic self.
Okay, gotcha.
So whatever is on your mind, please say it.
Okay, gotcha.
We're not going to censor you.
Okay, gotcha. I'm gonna be respectful. So I'm smoking a Primo blunt, and if you don't know what that is, it's weed and another drug mix, and I put in a cigar and you roll it up, do the whole thing. So I smoked about some of it by myself, and you're really into that whole world when you're getting high by yourself at this point, right? so I put like the rest of it on my mom's porch, the light, on her porch, and I went inside. And for some reason, I went and turned on Christian television. Now, that may have a bad rap and different things out there, but for whatever reason, I turned it on. And I'm watching this guy. He was from South Africa, and it was another man named Ben Kinchlow was interviewing him, okay? And I'm watching this, and the guy from South Africa was telling his story, kind of like just what I'm doing here. And he was talking about his life in drugs and how he came out of it, and it caught my attention. And Ben Kinchlow stopped. He was the guy interviewing. He stopped. Is this camera on me right now? And he stopped, and he points at the TV, and he goes, somebody out there is going through the same thing that this man's going through. Wow. I'm like either what I just smoked was like tripping me out, or like God is talking to me right now, right? And it was just one of those moments. And so he goes on, he keeps on talking his story, and as he began to tell what happened to him, it began to happen to me. And I had this whole encounter with Jesus Christ. And I went and flushed some drugs down the toilet, and I knew I needed to pray. And so there was a number on the TV screen, and I'm trying to call this number. And this is back in the 90s. The cords were still on the phone, right. Caller ID boxes, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, yeah, the young folks may not remember that. But
voicemail recorders.
Voicemail recorders. And I think there was a voicemail that I ended up getting a hold of on one of these stations, and it would be neat to hear what that had to say. But anyway, no one's answering the phone. So I flipped to another station that was based out of Dallas-Fort Worth, Christian station, called them. No one's answering the phone. I was trying to pray with somebody. And here I am just in this state, and I just had this encounter with Jesus, and I'm like, I just knew I needed to pray. And so, remember I told you I had that praying mom or that Christian mom?
That's right.
So she came in, and she walked in the front door from wherever she was that night. And I'm like, Mom, I need to pray. And so, let me back up on this part. So no one was answering the phone, and so I got mad at God. So please don't judge me or look down on me for getting upset at God. But I did at this moment, and I'm sort of kind of skinny. I've got, a little increase over the years, but you can imagine me $125 back in that world. And I put my skinny, arm up in the air at God like that was going to do something. And I said, God, and I was yelling. I won't shout out here. I was like, God, where are your people? And because I was mad, I'm trying to pray. And then it seemed like it was a moment after that. Who knows how long it actually was. But my mom walked in the door, and she came and sat on the couch with me. She had this white leather couch and at the house we lived in. And so she's holding my hand, and I'm holding her hand, and I'm expecting Mom to pray, because that's just what my mom did. Mom prayed.
All right.
Hey, Zachary's in trouble. God, she's going to talk to God for me or whatever. But she didn't this time. She nudged me. She was like, go ahead. And it was a life-changing decision. And I thank God she did that. And so I cried out, just Jesus, come into my heart. Please forgive me of all my sins. I was just crying out genuinely from my heart to Jesus. And so I had a life change. And I was still smoking my cigarettes, but I was opening the Bible. I was getting in the Word. I was trying to grow. And I remember smoking my cigarette outside on this rocking chair, and ashes falling in the Bible. I had to wipe ashes out of the Bible. You don't want to burn a good Bible when you're trying to learn out of it. And so, it was a process for me. And I went for maybe a good week. But then and maybe we can get into this, but then I I didn't change my associations. I went back to the old crowd, the people that I was doing things with before. And I went back into that world for a season, tried to sell again, couldn't make the same kind of money. On the inside, I was changed. You understand what I'm saying? But my outside wasn't lining up to the work that I believe God had started on or was doing on the inside of me. So I couldn't enjoy getting high with my friends anymore. We were driving around town one day trying to get high. I was, doing things.
Were you listening to DJ Screw?
DJ Screw. That or 20-inch blades on the Impala.
Oh.
So anyway, Master P, Tupac, Biggie, it could have been any. But so I'm like, now I'm at the spot where I'm starting to preach to people, but I'm still trying to live with this in this whole world. So I was like torn between two worlds. And this one guy goes, man, I don't even like getting high with you anymore. And like on the inside, I'm like, yes, if I can't enjoy it, y'all ain't fitting to enjoy it either. You know what I mean? So anyway, it was a whole gradual process. And then my mom, she told me about this place in Alabama, way in the South. Arlington City, Dallas-Fort Worth City, Alabama, whatever stereotype you may have of that state. And so I'm going out there, and I ended up going there and started getting disciplined. And it was a whole encounter. I was there for about a year where we were praying and getting into the word and learning and getting taught. And then I became a missionary at 19 years old. And so we mentioned school before. When others were going to like D1 schools and doing this thing, I'm in the Caribbean on the middle of a rock in the sea, talking to other guys that come from a drug and alcohol background that are just abusing it and just, just having issues in life. And I'm talking to them about Jesus, you know what I mean? And so comes a season where it just began to grow and develop. And then I went to ministry school in Oklahoma in 2002, graduated in 2004, went to Colorado, served out there for a season, then went back to Alabama and worked at the ministry that I went to as a teenager. And then in 2011, I stepped into the nonprofit Zachary Bigley Ministries. And so I travel around different churches and youth detention center, and we do a kids camp. We're
gonna get into all that later. But,
cool.
But this, Mo, is when I heard this story and I saw the conviction that took place internally, right? You can tell it's not fluff, it's not phony. Like he's gonna tell you, like, yo, I smoked Primo. You know what I mean? I've done all these type of things. It was so enriching for me, to see that. Let's rewind a little bit here of your story. The impact that the drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, your decisions, how did that affect those that were close around you?
Oh, you ask most everybody in America, they know somebody or have a family member that does drugs, or they've been affected by drugs in some form or another, an aunt, an uncle, dad, grandma, whatever. It's an epidemic in our society. Yeah. Okay. For some, it's just culturally acceptable to do things. And basically, specifically my mom, here I am doing my thing, thinking I'm 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and God knows what kind of worry and stress I'm putting her through.
And she knew what was going on.
Oh yeah, I can tell you the time she yes. I'll just leave it at that. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I got arrested, so I got a mugshot. You can probably go online and find that. But for a DUI, you know what I'm saying? So all these different things, just I could tell you story after story. Just the stress of my mom alone. Right. And so and now that I'm a parent, I understand it more. Like the stress that you add, and you're not thinking you're doing anything because you're just. Let me speak for myself. As a teenager, I'm just living my life.
Just living.
Yeah, what we do is what we do. Our friends, the music we were listening to was telling us how to make, certain, and it was just the lifestyle we live. And we're not thinking consciously that this is stressing my mom out or giving her gray hair or keeping her up at night or wondering if he's going to come home. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So yeah, absolutely. It affects. And then after I started working with men that have come from this drug and alcohol abuse background, life controlling issues, I began to meet husbands where their wives are now, on the verge of leaving them. Their marriage is hanging on like by dental floss type stuff. You know what I mean? And so it's absolutely It's not just, oh, it's not hurting anybody. It's just no. Because we have people that love us. So yeah, no, man, it's absolutely across the board.
As we continue this interview, Cuff, allow me to say thank you to somebody who supported us from Jump Street and who it's all love every time we talk to him on the phone.
Yeah.
And that's Edwina Brown and family at Blowing Smoke Cigar Lounge. Congrats on the new location, EB. Visionaries, the new location is 1604 North I-35 in Lancaster, Texas. Great humidor, great customer service. If you're anywhere on the southern part of the DFW, make sure you get the Blowing Smoke Cigar Lounge. So you guys been getting caught up, right? This is great to kind of see this, because I asked Cuff today, I was like, hey, tell me his story, and he was like, just follow me. So from your perspective, looking back at it now, right? Mm-hmm. And you had I always call it like it's a watershed or a light bulb moment, mm-hmm. and then we call it, people call it backsliding or whatever you want, whatever term you like to use. What was your moment where you said, okay, I'm going to stick with it?
Right. That's a good question. So for me, I had to move environments. I had to begin to surround myself with people that were going in the same direction with me. Because and just to give you a background of some of the people I was hanging, guys and girls, we're not just talking guys. We're talking after I left in 99, I left in October of 99. After that, one guy, 20-year prison sentence, 10-year prison sentence. Wow. Another guy, like this guy stayed in my house, rode my car, 10-year prison sentence, state prison in Texas, girls going to prison. And so by the grace of God, I got out when I did.
Just in time,
exactly. So to give you an idea of the environment, this wasn't like a casual you were in it. We were in it. And so for me, when I began to move out of my environment and I began to hang out with people that were going in that same direction as me, that was the turning point for me.
How does somebody that is looking to make the change externally take that step?
Reword the question.
We know that there's power of proximity, right? We know that a lot of it has to deal with the associations that you were dealing with. But like you said, you were hanging out with your friend. Sure. Dude was like, dude, I don't even like smoking with you anymore. I don't like getting high with you. Yeah. How do you change relationships, associations, the people that you hang around with?
Sure. Well, for me, it was I moved out of state. And I know that's not for everybody. Like my brother, for example, he recently just came out of a bad lifestyle like that, maybe 3 years ago or so. And for him, he moved away, but now he came back. And for him, it was being intentional about who you hang out with. And here's the catch is I don't want to. It can come across you're almost trying to be better than the people you hung out with before because, well, I can't hang out with you. And it's not that you don't like them, but at some point in your life, if you're in this abusive lifestyle, you have to make a decision that ultimately is best for you for a season. Doesn't mean you can't go back and you can't associate with them later on, but you got to be able to stand up a little bit and get some footing underneath you. And so
there's nothing wrong wanting better for yourself, though.
Exactly.
Like you said you had a vision of yourself at 30, and somewhere in the midst of everything you had going on, you had the wherewithal to be like, the current path I'm on right now is not going to look like the way I want it to at 30. So it's not even about, I'm better than you, but like, I'm going to save myself because if we keep doing this, like we're all going to wind up in the gutter.
Right. Exactly. No, you said it great. Yep. Absolutely.
So you change the room, right? We talk about all the time. That goes back to the very first episode of the show when BP Battle said, if you realize you're the smartest person in the room, change the room. So you change the room. You find yourself at 19, being a missionary, hanging out in the Caribbean, all that good stuff, right? So when you get back, on solid ground, if you will,
right?
How do you, and I don't know if we've got this part of the interview yet, but I got to ask because I'm curious now.
Let's do it.
How do you go from doing all that to now all of a sudden, you know what? I'm going to have a foundation or an organization to where like I want to do this for everybody, not just my immediate circle of people that I used to hang out with.
Sure. So it was gradual, it was a process, right? You heard the statement, trust the process, right?
Of course.
Okay. So I was first really just into like helping guys that come from life controlling issues similar to my background. And that's what I did for years. Years. I was serving and helping, years, probably, let me just try to think real quick, 2, 5, maybe 7 years or so I was into that helping. And then while I was serving at this ministry and church in Alabama, helping guys that have come from the life controlling issues, an opportunity opened up to come help in the children's department at this church. And so it was just, I was asked, and I was basically filling a spot, right? Okay, sure. Just serving. Because isn't that how we succeed in life? Isn't that how we become great leaders, is by serving,
That's
right? And so I'm serving, and then an opportunity to help out in the youth, and I became a youth pastor. Well, that began to grow. We started out with one teenager it was called the Bargain Barn. One teenager showed up, and I was like, well, we're going to go hang out with the adults. So it's not just me and this one teenager, but that one, we started setting goals, and there's a whole thing we could talk about today or maybe another time, but just we started setting some real practical goals numerically, and it went from 1 to 25, and it started growing and growing and growing. And this was out in the woods, like in the country of Alabama. And so I just was youth, and then I stepped into the nonprofit, what I'm Zachary Bigley Ministries Incorporated, and I stepped out. I'm going to go talk to adults. go talk to adults, because
I got all the life experience.
Because I'm 30 years old, and my goodness, I'm gonna go out here, and that's just what you do. And then all of a sudden, this one door, I was selling cars in Montgomery, Alabama, and I'd stepped out to go, preach and tell people about Jesus and this ministry, this nonprofit, and the doors weren't opening. It was like crickets, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm selling cars. I'm like, man, this isn't what I stepped out to do. This isn't what I stepped out of the boat to go walk on water, selling cars. And thank God the money was there, and it was provision, but I wasn't satisfied inside. And then there's one door opened at it's called DYS, Department of Youth Services. And it's a bunch of teenagers, but they were in prison, basically, like a youth prison. And the door to go into this, to go minister there was, if it was like the kids that had been doing drugs or like attempted murder or something, whatever, that we could do. But if I'm honest, I didn't really want to walk through this door, because it was kids that had been accused of a crime, and I'll kind of be elusive. They've been convicted of a crime where some of them couldn't even go back home, like sexual crimes type stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I just was not eager to go walk through that door. And I guess just to say how it happened, like I was in the showroom floor of this car dealership I was working for, and I just heard, like, on the inside, if you walk through that door, I'll open other doors for you.
Wow.
And so I did. And so I go to this thing. You got to go through the gate, go through the guards, and I walked in the door. It's like brick walls. There's a control tower. One dude's over here getting out of the shower. I mean, it's like 2-tiered thick. It's youth prison. Great door, great opportunity. Where's the stage and the lights and the camera and these cool mics and headphones? Where's all that stuff? It was like nothing glamorous. But I went in there and I shared my story, right? And as I shared the story, man, these kids just responded, and they started like thronging me, like coming around me. And it hit me. I was like, you know what these youth need? They just need some time, some love, and some attention. And isn't that what most people in the world need? Just a little time, some love, and some attention. And I went through that door, and that was probably 10 years ago or so. And the door after door, the story's been told on TBN, which is a big network. It's gone across the world. I'm traveling. I just got back from Myrtle Beach. I'll be in Mississippi tomorrow speaking. So it's been
amazing to watch.
Good. It's been a journey.
God use you as his vessel.
No, go ahead.
Your cadence, the way that you orchestrate the words that you use to talk to the youth, as well as adults too, right? But like, how did you learn this whole process?
Believe it or not, I was shy as a kid. I was really shy as a kid. And I think with anything, like the more you do, like your first podcast, if you're honest, was probably not as good as like the ones.
Sorry,
you're doing,
BP.
Right? But you know what I mean? Like
Shout out to BP, man. Congrats
BP.
on the new location.
Yes. But you get better the more you do it.
Right.
And you gain a confidence as you do things more. And I think, I've been speaking since I've been 19 years old, like publicly speaking in some form, maybe with some gaps in there. But, that's what, 20 something years there.
21.
Right. And so, and then lots of grace and help from God. Right. And so, and one thing I've learned with youth is, like, as I'm coming to terms that I'm the older guy now, which, the older we get, we don't want to admit that, right? But
Had that thought the other day, actually.
but to a 16-year-old, we're dad, and so I've also come to learn that you don't have to try to be like the cool younger dude to the teenagers. Like, I think authenticity is key, like just being you.
That's right.
Right? And so if I could just be me, I think people will be more open to hear what you have to say. So
this is the Vision Lab podcast. When you first started speaking and you first said, okay, I'm going to walk through those doors at that youth detention center, for lack of a better word, what was the initial vision you had for yourself? And there's I'm going to backdoor that question, but I want that answer first.
For that specific one, or when I first started speaking?
Either way, whichever way you're comfortable.
The very first time I spoke, I was nervous. I was probably 19 years old, and it was at a Southern Baptist youth group. So maybe 10 kids or something there. So nervous, just to really tell on myself. I probably went to the bathroom like 2 or 3 times before I even got up to go. And I was just nervous. And right before, it's like I got up there behind this thing. It was like I had like maybe 5 minutes to speak. It's like I felt I don't want to get all,
No,
yeah, but like,
on.
I just felt like the anointing, for lack of better words. I just felt like this covering come over me. And this boldness came on me, right? And I began to speak, and I just was going, telling my story, sharing whatever I shared. And it just clicked. It just went. And then it's like, once you do it, and I think the key is not looking at it as a job, but as a calling. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely, because and I'm going to let you get to your next question, but as you were talking, I'm thinking it is so cool to see you walking in your calling.
Right. It's the best place for all of us to be.
Right. And I'll have a follow-up for you after his.
So the back end of that is, how has that initial vision that you had when you first started speaking at 19 years old, how has that changed or evolved to where you are current day, or is it still the exact same vision?
That's a great question. It's in a sense the same, because it's a simple message. It's a message that's anyway. There's a whole story I could kind of lead up to it, but for sake of time, I won't go into it. But like the message that I have been sharing has developed when I went through a rough patch in my life after walking this Christian lifestyle out for some years. Got to the spot where there's like just depressed and just mental, just anguish and going through some things in my mind. And it came to a settling point where God ain't mad at you. Jesus loves you, and he's got a good plan for your life. And so the heart of just sharing the message to people, I think, remains the same. I think what changes is the avenues of how it goes out. Podcasting.
Yep.
We just recently did a recording for a curriculum we're going to start setting up, which will enable, in a sense, me or the message I'm sharing to be in multiple places while I'm at home with my wife and kids. You understand what I'm saying? So like maybe the avenues of how it goes, so I don't have to be in so many different places, has changed. But I think the heart of just sharing good news, right? That's what's important. We want to share good news, not bad news.
Earlier I said walking in your calling.
Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately everybody really wants to get to that place because it's a place of peace.
Mm-hmm.
What is that like?
You said place of peace. That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. There's a story in the Bible where this woman named Martha, she had received Jesus into her house, and he was sitting there talking the word, sharing his word. And she was busy. She was going about cleaning and preparing food or whatever she was doing in the kitchen and just working. And she got upset because her sister Mary was just sitting at Jesus's feet hearing his word. And she says to Jesus, and I'll paraphrase it, but Jesus, can't you tell Mary to get up and come help me? She's just sitting there. And he said, Martha, Martha, you are you're worrying, you're anxious about and troubled about many things. He says, but Mary has chosen that good part. She was sitting at his feet, hearing his word. And he goes, and that's not going to be taken from her. And so when you find out the purpose, the calling, here's a way to answer that question. What's my calling? What would you do if money was not an option, You knew you couldn't fail. It was moral, legal, ethical, right? And you knew it was God's perfect will for your life. What would you do? What's that thing that comes up on the inside of you? That's a great indicator of your calling. And I think sometimes in like the Christian world, we may try to over spiritualize things sometimes. Like, what's my calling? Am I supposed to go be a missionary in Greenland or something, you know, or am I supposed to go into the outback of Australia and preach out there? What if it's just to start a podcast? What if it's to create a business? Like, whatever, what excites you? And I think once you tap into that, the peace that passes all understanding is there to help kind of just guard our heart and guard our minds and walk us through life seasons, man. But yeah, just he's calling, hello, okay, let's go.
I love that. And I wanted to give a practical definition, if you would, on that. So I appreciate that.
I'm going to ask you about your practical definition here in just a second. But before I do,
I'm nervous.
Before I do, allow me to say thank you to the good folks at Class A Vodka, Crystal and Tim. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Visionaries, we stand on the product for a reason. It's Class A Vodka. The slogan is class in every glass. Send them a DM on Instagram. We promise they'll make sure you're taken care of. Class A Vodka, class in every glass. Make sure you get a bottle. Your practical.
Well, his practical definition.
Oh, okay.
Of the question.
Okay, so then let me switch gears then. So, exactly, absolutely. So what does your day-to-day look like now in the sense of you're spreading the message, you're, for lack of a better word, as you know, inspiring people, you're sharing your story, like you're delivering good news. That's a good way to put it. What does your day-to-day look like now? And not even the sense of like the whole COVID thing, but just like, you know, especially compared to where you came from, what your day-to-day activity was now. What does it look like now in Zachary Bigley's life?
Sure. And that's a seasonal thing because my summers are typically busier than different times of the year.
More kids are out of school.
More kids are out of school. We're doing more events and traveling. For example, this month, I think if you add all the days together in the month of June, I'll have been home like maybe 7 days this whole month.
Oh, wow.
So, for example, I've been in Savannah, Georgia, East Dublin, Georgia. It depends on the season. There could be times where I'm at home with my kids and watering my trees in Prattville, Alabama. You know what I mean? So playing with my two dogs and just taking it really easy and chill. Or then it could be like tomorrow, I'm driving to Mississippi. So it just really honestly all depends. So
obviously summertime right now, you're doing a lot of traveling. Like you said, at home only 7 days. This month at the time of this recording. One of the things that you said earlier that I really took note to was setting goals. And, you know, like you mentioned before, vision without the Bible verse, Habakkuk 2:2, right?
So, well, yeah, there's that when you talk about running, write the vision, make it plain, right? Yeah.
So how important is goal setting?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. And my thing about goal setting is, well, for example, I travel, and so there's different places that I'll be speaking at. There was a time when I set, and this was like I believe in reasonable, achievable goals. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I want to speak in 10,000 different places in the month of June. Well, come on, like, you know, let's be real about this. But I set a goal for 2 different places a month. This was years ago. I want to speak in 2 different places a month. Well, then I remember being challenged to stretch that to like 3 or 4. And you might as well said 10. Where are 2 more meetings going to come in the month? And then, like, you know, you just heard now basically home only about 7 days this whole month. So setting achievable goals, I think is key to any field you're in.
That's right.
You know, any field, even with your like children. I got 3 kids. Well, the reading goals or you know, sports goals. Like I think we're motivated by success. We're motivated by achievement. Like if we can reach this goal, okay, yeah, we can actually we hit 100 podcast episodes. I saw you guys did that.
Thank you very much. A true fan of the show.
Come on now. Well, if we can hit 100, we can do 150, right? You know what I'm saying? So like just achievable goals, I think is key. And I don't think it has to be for like the special, like, I don't know what even word you would put that, but I just think it's something practical that everybody should do in life.
Those are called SMART goals. SMART, excuse me. What does the S stand for in SMART goals? It's, I I don't know. The M is like
One
measurable.
of those books you've been reading. Now
Yeah,
here it comes.
It's
Teach us,
measurable.
man. Teach us.
Measurable. Action. I can't remember what the whole
Hey,
thing
the
was.
great Tony Tavares told us a couple weeks ago, what gets measured gets what gets measured gets improved. Is that the
That's
way?
good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's the exact quote. I apologize if I butchered it, Tony. I apologize.
Specific, measurable, active. I can't remember the R right now. And then time.
Reachable?
Reachable, and then
I don't
time. So,
I'm throwing stuff out there.
you know, with you having 3 kids,
Yeah.
how do you? And we don't like the word balance.
No,
we
that's
definitely don't like
that's
that
a
word.
fictional concept.
But how do you make sure that you're giving energy to them, to your wife,
Yep.
who obviously after God, she's first, right?
She's amazing. Here's how I do this. I used to have, again, from the Christian perspective, it was like God first, family second, job third, almost like a totem pole.
Right.
But I see it differently now. So I look at it like a spoke. And for me, God being the center. And then everything else coming off of that. So there may be a time in my life where my wife is the focus. Me and wife time, building relationship, because if husband and wife ain't clicking, the kids could be, okay, well then maybe my kids need my time. And maybe specifically one of those kids needs more attention. Well, I'm in a season right now where I'm gone traveling. So right now the ministry is a major focus for this season. So I look at it as not so much like a totem pole, but as a spoke, like what we say balance, like, okay, what are you focusing on at that season?
And do the kids understand? Hey,
They're
Dad's gonna
7,
be gone?
5, and 2.
Yeah.
And so that's getting like the 2-year-old, he's 2. He probably won't even remember that I'm gone right now, right? The 5-year-old, I'm starting to see, oh, Dad, I'm gonna miss you. My 7-year-old, it's starting to come to that season of life. So we'll see how, what kind of adjustments need to be made.
Listen, you're going to have to reorganize some
You know what I
things.
mean?
Sounds
So
like it's going to be a Bigley roadshow.
we'll have to see how it plays out.
You were homeschooled.
Well, that's a whole story. That was not a good idea, but yes. Anyway, that's a whole other I was homeschooled by myself while my mom was working in that lifestyle that I was talking about before. It was not a good recipe.
I was gonna, or maybe it was.
Well, at the time for me, it was great.
I'm sure you learned how to count.
Yeah. Math wasn't that hard of
Science, probably.
Science measure. Anyway, yeah. But okay, can I say something on that?
Of
Okay,
course.
so you talk about like you take someone, a young person that's selling drugs, totally illegal, right? But what are they doing? Take all that stuff and just go like kind of break it down. I guess no pun intended or pun intended. Okay. So anyway, but they're learning business concepts. They're learning about supply and demand.
Mhm.
They're learning about marketing, right?
Assets and liabilities.
Right. Okay. They're all those different practical things. And then you say, well, don't do that. And they're making buku money. And then all of a sudden you say, stop, because obviously they shouldn't be doing that. But then you say, not to slam or put anybody down that may be doing this, but say, now you go work at a fast food place and flip burgers for minimum wage. Okay.
Right.
You're telling someone that has those skills to just go do almost something that they're not able to utilize, in a sense, a God-given gifting. It's just their focus was put in the wrong direction. Imagine taking them and say they wanted to start a chain of barbershops. Okay. Take those same principles, the same things that you were doing over here, and apply it to something profitable, something legal, something ethical. It's the same skills, but I feel like as leaders and as mentors, that's something, it's not like, well, don't. Well, hey, man, I noticed that you're obviously doing something. You got some skills here. What if we put it in a right direction?
Instead of flipping these bricks, let's go ahead and flip some stock.
Right.
Let's go ahead and open some fast food restaurants.
Exactly.
And I think that's a big problem.
Overhead cost might be a little too high. Cost a little bit.
But
The
it's
principle,
the
the
mindset.
principle.
It's the
That's
mindset.
it. The
It's
mindset.
the
The
of it.
electricity bill is a lot more than rubber bands and baggage, Chief.
Like, they understand how to make it work.
But you get the point. It's the principle behind
For sure.
And why are we kind of, I don't say limiting or hindering people and trying to put like them in this small box? It's like, dude, you're obviously you're working something here. And that's why we as mentors and leaders have to step in and kind of help get them in the stream, in the path.
So I've got to ask this question I got two questions for you. Let me start with this one first. You're an evangelical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or evangelist?
Evangelist, yeah.
Okay. What's the difference between being an evangelist and a pastor?
So a pastor would be someone that has a church building where people come like on Sunday morning, Wednesday night, whenever they have their services, and he's like the pastor there of that church.
Or on staff.
Right. An evangelist is someone that does more of the traveling, goes about different places, and really has a simple message of good news. Hey, man, God ain't mad at you. Jesus loves you. He died on the cross for your sins. You know, he came in the flesh. God raised him from the dead. Like the gospel message. And a pastor is one of those. It's just pastoring the sheep. You know, he in a sense smells like the sheep. He's there marrying people and burying people, and I can technically do those things too. But he's like at an actual church building consistently.
The leader of the flock.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Do you have plans to, have your own church one day?
We'll see how that all plays out.
I'm sure that's been asked.
I mean, and people call me pastor.
Yeah.
I think they just kind of lump it together. But, hey, we'll see how that plays out.
So next question. Since you have a background with, illegal substances, what are your thoughts on the legalization of marijuana?
So my thing on that is, I'm going to jump into like the prison reform aspect of it. So it's becoming legal in a lot of places. Okay. Medicinally in some states, recreational in other. Okay. So you still got guys that are in prison though, that got charged for weed. I'm talking marijuana, and they're still in prison, even though it's legal in some areas. I think it's only right or fair if you're making it legal in states that there should be some kind of prison reform for those that are in prison for something that's now legal. Give people some redemption. Give them a second chance. But
as far as consumption,
you know what,
not
man?
For you personally.
I got you. And that comes down to a conviction thing. Like, so you get people taking pills. Think about that. They're taking whatever legally prescribed pills. What's that doing to their kidneys? What's that doing to their internal organs? And you can go do the research on that. Can I be wishy-washy and wiggle my way out of that one? Out of that question right there?
I see how you're working. P, I think it's that time.
Well, before I do that, I have a question about support, right?
Okay.
Because you would not have gotten
Amen.
To where you are without a support staff. And one of the groups that supports us is the good folks at Dallas Leaf LLC. The website is DallasLeafLLC.com. The Instagram handle is @DallasLeafLLC. Whether it's cigars, entertainment, charitable events, whatever it might be, give it the good folks at Dallas Leaf LLC. We promise you will not be disappointed. My question to you, sir, is who has been, and this could be singular or plural, who has been the biggest group or groups that have helped you get to this point? Because you started from a long way away and you've gotten to a really good spot, but we all know that nobody gets anywhere without help from somebody.
You talking financially or just in general?
Just in general.
Well, mom, of course, it started, there. My wife, hands down. Like probably the biggest one would be my wife, Rachel. Shout out. I love you, Rachel Bigley. You're
Was
amazing.
she around you?
So no.
Okay.
So she didn't know that, Zachary.
Okay.
She didn't know that, Zachary. But she met me when I was, when did we meet? She met me when I was moving back to Alabama, back in 2005. And so, but she holds it down. She holds it down. So the biggest supporter would be my wife. There's just, absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A man who finds a wife has found a good thing.
Good and obtains favor with the Lord. I tell you what, that's
come on now.
I forget that last part.
Yeah, right. You want to leave that out. Like a wife, that's a sign of the favor of God on your life.
Absolutely. So now you have said it, Cuff. It is time to land the plane. Brought to you by the good folks at Grand Below Cognac. Thank you to Francisco, the owner. Thank you for being on the show a few weeks ago. Thank you to Jameson, the Lovers team, the Experience Brokers, everyone who's been a part of this partnership. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. Visionaries, the Instagram handle is at Grand Brulot, BRULOT. There it is.
There it is. Got to make that pop.
Come on now.
All right.
Thank you, sir. So, as we take a nip of this great product, one of the questions we ask everybody on the show It's you, and there's a round table. There are 5 other seats. Who would be the 5 other people you want your table? The only caveat is you can't have, you can't have Jesus at your table. That's too easy.
Jeez.
Outside of that, anybody else dead or alive? Doesn't matter.
All right. Paul the Apostle.
Oh, you're such a cop-out.
That's one. I think I would pull like a Mark Cuban in, and Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
I would pull a Mother Teresa.
Oh.
I think that would be kind of, she was really helping the poor and whatnot. And maybe I'm going to go old school, like Napoleon, like just a general, see what's happening there.
I feel like we've had one person say that.
I think one person said Napoleon. Maybe. That's a good table, though. It's a really good table.
It's a good question.
Real quickly, before we land the plane, how can our visionaries support you, Zachary Bigley Ministries? Mm-hmm. How can they follow you on all social media platforms?
Sure. Facebook, Zachary Bigley. Instagram, @Zachary Bigley. Not real hard. I even got Snapchat, ZB Dude.
Oh, man.
Twitter, Zachary Bigley. The easiest way would just be to go to our website, zacharybigley.org, and you can get our links there and check us out, see what we're doing. And thank y'all so much for letting me be part of this.
Absolutely. Now we've got 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
We ask this to every guest that jumps into the lab. In case you didn't know, we do have a magical time machine. Okay. What would today's version of Zachary Bigley, what advice would he be giving you from 5 years ago?
Oh, only 5? So, okay. So, wow.
He was out the weeds by then.
Mm-hmm.
5, yeah. So that wasn't too long ago. What would I give advice to my 35-year-old self?
Yeah.
Keep going. Just keep going.
That's it.
Yeah, just keep going, man.
All right. Now, we're going to fast forward the clock 5 years from now. You're 45.
Okay.
Still got an amazing set of hair.
Come on, somebody. Where's the organ for that one?
Yeah,
Come
there you go. What advice is he giving you today?
Make sure your wife and kids still love you and you're not putting, quote unquote, acceptance and success from all the other people out there before acceptance and love from your own family.
And if Zachary Bigley were a book, what would be the title of your book?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. If I was a book, The King Within, there's a whole backstory to that.
But
The King
You got to explain. Come on
That's
now.
good.
So
You just can't say that and just try to cut it off.
That's real good.
Okay, so The King Within. So I'm in kindergarten in California. Miss Young, The Power of a Teacher. Miss Young. I was just getting in trouble. I had a parent-teacher conference in kindergarten, if that kind of gave you an idea of who I was.
Hey, you're just an early starter,
My
man.
goodness. Oh, Lord have mercy. So we're having this conference, and her name was Miss Young, and she was saying this in a way to make it, like, be nice, but she said, Zachary is like the king of the classroom. And I'm 5, 6, however old you are in kindergarten. And she said that, and it just stamped me. It marked me. I mean, it marked me. I'm 40 years old, and I still remember this. And it's just something that makes you put your shoulders back a little bit. I'm the king. I'm the king of the classroom.
Yeah.
And so there was a moment in time where I had a dream, and I'll be short with this, but I had a dream. And in this dream, there was back to Jesus. And Jesus appeared in this dream, and I reached up, and I touched like on his thigh. And there's a scripture in Revelation 19:19, and it says, written on his thigh is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And you know what? He's the King of Kings. And so the King within, man, just no matter what you're going through, no matter what struggles you face, no matter what issues you have, no matter what setbacks you may have, no matter if your dad was there, your dad was gone. Look, man, there's a king, and he's the King of Kings, and there's a king within. So rise up and be the king that God created you to be.
I love
Fire.
it.
So
Where's the organ now?
what?
I love it.
Hey, listen, it's been amazing to have you into the lab, chop it up with you. It's been even more amazing seeing the growth, because I remember you more so in high school, right? And knowing how you've turned your life around and how God has played such a integral part of that process.
Yeah.
I congratulate you, sir.
Thank you, man.
I mean, I think it's amazing.
To God be the glory. Thank you.
And I love what you're doing, so keep doing that. Remember, visionaries, each one of our guests that come into the lab are dropping nuggets of wisdom here on the Trail of Life. Ultimately, my friends, it's up to you to pick them up.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ryan Mosley. He is Ryan Cuffey. Thank you again to our guest, Zachary Bigley. We will see you guys next week on another great episode of the Vision Lab podcast.
Blessings.
Smoke.